All right, guys. Well, we can go ahead and get started. So, thank you guys. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for the first ever Force of Will Finance podcast. This is the product of something Dylan wanted because he came to me and vaguely said, I want to do something. And I said, the only thing I'm comfortable with is finance. And we went with that. So, ta-da! I used to do the Force of Will finance videos on the Rogues Guild channel, but since we stopped doing videos, switched over to live streams, I think this is probably a good thing. So, what I have done is I have selected two friends of mine who I know wheel and deal and pay close attention to the secondary market to join me. First, Dylan Hunt. How are you doing, buddy?
Doing great.
Doing great. So, Dylan, why don't you go ahead and remind the people what you do that you care so much about the secondary market?
Well, I sell cards. I have a brick and mortar Gamers Lair, and we also have a website, dualkingdom.ca. So we do pretty much everything: Yu-Gi-Oh, Force of Will, Caster Chronicles, White Shores. So like all the games basically besides Magic and Dragon Ball. So I've got a pretty good stake in what's going on with both the single cards for Force of Will and the sealed product and all that kind of stuff.
You use it to eat, live, and breathe, huh?
Hell yeah.
Fantastic. And then our other partner in crime, far end over there, is Emilio. Emilio, what's going on?
How's it going?
Go ahead and tell the people why you are on this panel.
It's kind of similar to what Dylan's doing. I'm opening a brick and mortar here soon. I've been doing niche card games online for a while now. And Force of Will is one of my favorites. I'm also a terrible player that never listens to Ryan Miles when he tells me to play a good deck. But,
He's bad anyway.
So for those that may not know faces or names, oftentimes players like to associate with decks. So why don't you tell them all what green ruler you decided to play last year, huh?
CL.
What was that?
CL.
Busted. Wow.
All
Did you win
right, there he
any
is.
GPs? Or did you
So-
win all the
No,
GPs?
So, funny enough, Ryan put me on the stream round one for that GP. to try
Exactly.
Trying to shame you.
You have no idea. Like, dude, it was everyone. There's a CL there. Ah! He's doing
It
so
was against
good.
Layla Alter too. That was a fun time.
Hey, don't worry. That was pretty much me in Reflector Frame format with the Yggdrasil.
Oh,
Just rocking the Yggdrasil. Everyone's like, but it's just, why? And I'm like, it's Yggdrasil, yo. We got to play the tree.
So
It's
yeah,
like-
it happens. But yeah, for a while, yeah. So Emilio is CL player, but yeah. So and then myself, for those of you that don't know, I am a competitive TCG player, captain of the Rogues Guild, and I have been wheeling in singles for about 3 years. I do not own a store. I only use TCG Player and the Facebook Marketplace to just kind of offset my costs. I do not live off of the profits of my trading cards. All it does
Amateur.
is it takes away from strain on my family and on all the adult life that I have. So, but I've been doing it for 3 years now. I pay attention and I try to be really good at it. So that's kind of where my stake in all this is. But so yeah, we are going to be talking finance. Specifically, I kind of want to start since it's been a while since we've done this. I want to get your guys' opinion on the new company. So the new company took over in Decisive Battle of Valhalla. So tell me essentially what it was like selling cards in Force of Will for the whole career that you have been under the old company, the old management, and then how has it been selling cards under the new management, and what are your kind of pros and cons that you've kind of seen?
Well, it was kind of a weird handover because it wasn't planned at all, and it was pretty obvious from even just the sales side, because all of a sudden it went from the one company to the other in terms of distribution and everything, but no one knew what was going on. There wasn't any distributor or anything who even knew about the changes until they were basically already in place. And some of them actually didn't notice any difference because they had the exact same ordering process as before they did the changeover. So it was both transparent and chaotic at the exact same time.
Yeah, I guess all of us
because
that were paying attention.
Kim from Force of Will did the pre-orders, and Kim from I Spy, it's the same person, does the pre-orders still. Some distributors didn't even know it was the difference. Like, I'm buying Force of Will and I'm buying it from Kim, and it works out perfectly. But it was kind of a disaster in that respect, like with like promo cards and all that kind of stuff. But It's funny because they actually took over at Awakening of Ancients, but all the set was already done and everything, so they didn't do anything themselves for Awakening. It just was a weird thing where they made a product that they didn't actually work on and just kind of threw it out in the wild. But it's definitely a lot better in terms of the set distribution for these kind of stuff for single cards. And I find the booster box sales are also better because the boxes are in smaller packages. So instead of being the 36 card boxes, they're in the 20 card box or 20 pack boxes, or not card boxes. So from 36 packs to 20 packs. And I think that's a lot better for players because even though it's slightly more expensive, if I want to buy a box, I essentially spend half the amount of money. And also I have better set ratios in terms of like I get X amount of supers and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Whereas before it was a really, really big investment. Like it's like double the price just to say, hey, I want one box, want to try my luck and see what I get, right? But on the flip side, the single cards are more expensive. And that's kind of a weird dynamic for me to see how they just kind of flipped 180 from being super, super cheap but the box is really expensive to kind of being a middle ground where the boxes are cheaper, but the single cards are significantly up there in value. So it's a pretty large change in my opinion, but not an obvious one on the surface.
Emilio?
Yeah, I agree with most of what he said. I actually was one of the goobers that was kind of afraid to do anything with the change of ownership, and I really didn't touch DBV at all.
Oops.
Bro. But you're not alone. That was like 90% of the player base was like, let's hold off a month and see how this goes. And like, oh, I held off a month. My bad.
Yeah, that backfired terribly. I learned my lesson though. So I was pleasantly surprised with a lot of the changes in distribution. AO1 I did pretty well with. AO2 I kind of went all in and it was fantastic. I mean, you can go and look at the price of the box right now. It's pretty much $80, and that's just insane. If you would have said to me, when the changes were happening that we were going to have $80 20-pack booster boxes, I would have said insane. So
this isn't Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yeah. No, so when did you start wheeling? Kind of, what was the first set that you were wheeling, Emilio?
A lot probably would have been. Oh my goodness. Maybe probably NDR. I actually, if you don't know, I didn't even start playing Force of Will until
you met Ryan.
Right after Winds of Ominous came out. So
okay. Well, when did you start playing, Josh? You're not that old of a player either, are you?
No. Well, so my first set that I played was Twilight Wanderer, but I took a break and came back in LEL, and then so I've been in the thick of it since LEL, but the first time I played the game was Twilight Wanderer. But yeah, it's but yeah, I know that last set that ACN, all of that was, or NDR. NDR was the new Valhalla was a nice change. It really was. So, but yeah, that was one of the things that I noticed, and how I ended up having to switch my model was originally I was using Rudy from Alpha Investments to get the product that I needed, right? Because here in Fort Wayne, Indiana, I don't have a local store. So let me just preface that if you have a local store, buy from your local store. If you've got 17 stores in your town and they all refuse to do Force of Will, then go to online refronts and go that route. Nothing not personal there, that for some reason nobody flipping wants to play the damn game I love. But anyway, so I was using Rudy as my model to get product, and then the problem that I had was during that company switch, I was fine. I had no problems. I was like, let's go, whatever, new company. But Rudy had made a call that he was going to order less product, or that he was something, I don't know. Somehow I didn't get my order through Rudy, and I was pissed, absolutely pissed. And I scrambled, and I ended up able to get for $20 more a box though out the gate. I got cards from Odyssey, Jeremy's store up in Michigan. I had to go drive over there on our way home. Went an hour and a half out of my way, and I bought my case that I always flip and buy, and I was like, oh fuck, I need that. So then since then I've used Potomac distribution because I know that my demand is always going to be accounted for, right? And so it was interesting when I was selling cards before under the new or under the old management. There was a couple things that I had picked up on in terms of like distribution, like the old sets on the 36 cards. The way that they did their full art distribution was just wrong. You know, they didn't have it to where the super rare was the rarest or the rare was the rarest, and so it took somebody like paying that much attention to know that like your full art uncommons were your most rare, right? But then the other thing about the old cards is, for the most part, it was only the full arts that carried value. Like rares, super rares, you could build base rare decks and like nothing was higher than $5. You know what I mean? Like, and so it was a very interesting market to be in. So I used to rely heavily on bulk sale collections. Like, so I would go buy bulk collections and go sort them out, and that's how I would kind of make money on TCGs. It hasn't been but recently with this new company that just in the sealed product that I'm receiving out of the gate, I'm able to offset my costs. And that has been crazy. It has been absolutely crazy. As soon as that new company took over, I started not only buying my first case, like I always do, but I've bought additional booster boxes as the months go, and like keep a steady trickle that I used to never do. Like, it was always whatever my first case was, that was the only sealed I would touch. Sealed product was just wipe your hands clean when it came to the old company. Like, get off the sealed product and move on, right? But new company, new cards, sealed product has some value. Are you guys sitting on any sealed product right now?
I used to sit on a lot of it, but now it just kind of walks out the door. So no, I don't. I don't really have a whole lot of sealed product built up. Man, I'm telling you, I had all the way back to like 2 towers at one point. Like, and it was like stock that I had picked up from other stores. They're like, "Yo, we don't want this. It's been here forever." I'm like, "Sure, yeah, I'll take like 2 towers off of you, no problem." And like, it was actually sitting around for so long. I actually opened a box myself one day, like 2 years ago. I'm like, hell yeah, let's open a box of Tat. But then all of a sudden, it just like even my believe it or not, I even sold my Millennium Ages boxes that I had set aside. Like, I actually have like no back stock. It's crazy.
That's good. That is super good.
But I used to keep a really big back stock, but now the only thing I can even get my hands on is like Winds of the Ominous Moon boxes, or like Crimson Moon Fairy Tale, like stuff that didn't do super hot.
Yeah, and really doesn't have a lot of hot
And
cards in them.
Pretty old. Well, there's like such a big change, and it's even when they were under the old company, they constantly changed their mind on what they wanted to do for set distribution stuff. Like, initially it was your rares were always foil, your SRs were always foil, and it was like a pretty flat rarity system. And then they decided, like, oh well, what if we had like stamp cards and uber rares and full arts and foil non-full arts, and it's like inflated the market with all these like middle rarities that no one wants and all this stuff. And then they're just like, well, what if only the rares and stuff, or whatever, or what if everything just full art has no foil in between? And so that's cool, I guess, but it's still kind of the same problem where it just like floods you with cards, right? So that's why it's like weird to see all the different like tweaks that you've seen throughout the different models that the company has tried.
I think
Yeah,
they're in a pretty good place right now.
Yeah, this is probably the best it's been ever, I would say.
Yeah, when we
even
started
back in like
off,
the heyday, it was not the greatest secondary market, because even when more people were playing, just more cards were on the market then, right? So
Yep, and I mean, demand was pretty high back when the competitive scene was pulling like 300, 400 people tournaments, right?
Yeah,
So,
demand
like,
was high, but the supply was even higher. Like, anyone could crack a box and get almost everything they needed in like 2 boxes. So there's no incentive to do it, and everyone's trying to shovel cards for like a 10 cents a piece or what have you. So like, I think it used to be extremely rare if a card went for over $20, even on the higher end of competitive play. Like, I think pretty much just Cheshire Cat and maybe like a ruler, which is one of, because you only need one. Like, this doesn't really like scream value, even when this was like the 400 people GPs. It's like still no value in the cards, right?
Yeah, I was really happy when the company settled on giving a full art variant to every card in the set. That
was nice.
Helped the secondary market so much, because you got to a point where every booster pack could yield a card of value. and that was, that was good, and it wasn't always in the rare slot. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's really nice to be, well, even like God packs exist, but beyond that, it's like, okay, well, I only got a rare here, but the full art is an SR, and it's like, well, I actually like circumvented the rare slot essentially.
Yeah. Emilio, what'd you sell your full art sacrificial altar for?
Oh,
$20 a piece.
There you go.
I feel like I probably could have gotten more for them.
That was an uncommon. A full art uncommon $20 card. And I mean, and that's how it should be. That is absolutely how it should be. Because like the card itself, if you wanted to play with Sacrificial Altar, 50 cents.
Yep, absolutely.
You could buy a 50-cent card. You want to bling out your commons and uncommons? There you go. Now you're helping boys like Dylan, Emilio, and myself kind of pay for our addictions. So
on that note, I do miss the, after we lost Ubers, the secret rares. I kind of like those, having that.
Yeah, those were well, like
rares
it's
were
one of the
good.
things the players like them too, and it's something we're chasing in the box kind of deal. Like, oh, we haven't hit the secret in the case yet, right? So, but it's it like I get why they got rid of them. It's probably like logistically kind of taxing for them to put them in, and plus they still have to commission art for essentially a card that already exists, right? So I can see why their financials don't line up, but I think it probably impacted sales a lot.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. There really isn't anything to chase right now, and that's
It's just specific cards. Like,
Yeah,
there's no higher echelon of collectivity. It's just full art, not full art. That's all that matters.
Yeah. So I guess kind of going off of that, the new company has switched the promos. So I guess let's talk about this first. No longer having texture on your full arts. Good or bad?
It's nice to have something that this is for promos you're talking about, right?
I'm talking period. So like
Is all full arts not having
you pull a full art now, none of them
You're
are
right,
textured.
that was an NDR kind of thing. Honestly, it's not a huge deal in terms of, like, I barely noticed the texture before, and it's nice to have the full arts. I think the only reason they used to do it was to differentiate between the foils and the full arts in terms of like immediate visual appeal. I don't think it really affects the desirability of the full arts, and I don't really think it is anything more than a cost-saving measure. Like, I know they just don't think most people care, and it's probably costs a bit more to have the texture on it, so it was nice, but I don't think it affects the appeal.
I agree. I'm totally fine with it, especially with how they changed the rarities, just like the normal, the rare, and the super. I think for like starting an NDR, the full art rares and supers were textures, but the commons were just foil.
Yeah, I kind of blurred out after that. I'm like, oh yeah, they did used to be textured. But I've also noticed that a lot of, like, for example, the sacrificial altar we were just talking about, it makes the card look a lot nicer because you're not drawing specific attention to certain things with the textures. They're just a flat, nice colored image. Like, the darks are really, really vibrant, and that's something that's harder to do with the textured card, right?
Yeah.
Like, really good examples like Ultimate Rares and Yu-Gi-Oh! They're like horribly flat, and it just like destroys the card art.
Yeah, I'm at a point where I'm also fine without the textures. I know that was something that everybody kind of complained about, but I do view that as probably an additional cost that was completely unnecessary.
Like, it feels premium, but
Thank you very much for the sub, buddy. We appreciate you. Send me, PM me your information so I can get you in our Discord. But yeah, we were kind of like, when we switched over to this new set, like, that was some of the things, like, I noticed that the company cut a lot of costs, right? And I feel like the full art aspect was something that the texturing on the full art aspects was something that they cut for cost, and it didn't interfere with the beauty of the card. At the end of the day, the art is what is important, and so just taking away all the borders and the text boxes is enough. These cards are gorgeous just the way that they are, you know what I mean? Now, branching off that, what do you guys think about the promos? These digitally altered alternate art promos. So, like, Light of Raise and Revive.
it's really, really weird because some people say they really notice the differences, and I'm like, I can barely see, like, did they change this color or whatever? And then for other cards, like, oh, I don't see it, and I'll be like, oh, I see that one. Yeah, it's like an entirely different shape or whatever. So it's really like eye of the beholder kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily worse or better. I definitely personally prefer that they were different artwork, but a lot of time the artwork was like uglier, or they had an entirely different artist draw it, so it looks wildly different than the actual art. Like stuff like that. So I actually think this is kind of more like meddling thing, because if you notice, a lot of the promo cards don't hold value beyond their actual playability, whereas the whole point of the promo is the artwork 90% of the time, right? So other than really, really specific circumstances, promo cards are very poor value, whereas I find, and I can't say 100% this is correct because we haven't had a rotation with the new system, but I feel they hold their value more flat because they're so much more similar to the original. And also, there is still people who prefer the promos over the regulars, and it is a noticeable difference. So I honestly think it is better, but I also did like having different artwork, so it's kind of a mixed bag. I don't think it's affected the appeal of the promos price-wise, except they might actually be a little bit more expensive now that I think about it. I think in general, they're really close or higher than the original for the ones that I looked at anyway. But that might also be a distribution thing. There's less of the promos going around, so...
Yeah, I personally, I loved the completely new artwork, and like for me, that's what made the promo a promo. This alternate computer altered, not really two different card is not really something I'm a fan of, but like understanding that like the promo distribution is bad. Not a lot of people get these promos. I'm fine with it not being that different because I know that the circulation isn't good right now. And I see it all the time. There's like all of a sudden, like when these cards do spike in price, like we can use the donut drones as an example. Like when all of that happened, the donut drone. What was the other card that was in there with that one?
Donut drone. There was also the Estema, or not Estema. It's something.
Azazel.
Maybe it was. Yeah, Azazel. Yeah.
Azazel. Yeah, there was these like promos that just never made their way to the States or something along those lines.
Yeah, they were Europe only, I think.
Yeah, they were like a beautiful alternate art, and they were like going for $20. But the people that were selling them, it almost seemed like the people that were selling them had like 50 some copies of these, and I'm just like, that means you're a store. That means you were supposed to be giving these out to your players, like, and like now you're going this route. So I can appreciate that there isn't that much value added to these promos because they haven't figured out how to distribute these promos correctly, And what I do enjoy is that now all the promos are actually the good cards. You know what I mean? I mean, Light of the Sacred Spirit.
Light of Raisin Revive and Kaguya are a couple of the promos, right?
Yeah, well, Kaguya was the buy a box, but I think of the ones that the company has done at this point. I know that it was Opening the Red Eyes, which is an expensive card. They did Light and Razor Revive, which is a good card.
I
and
think
also
so far
expensive.
they've only done SR cards, is basically what you're saying.
I think that's true.
Because I don't think they've actually done any monthly promos, by the way, not like box promos or anything like that.
Yeah, no.
Monthly promos that are not SRs, because we have Super Beast Burning Rush. What was the other one? Screwed. I had them in my head. I'll just pull up the list. But yeah, sorry.
Oh yeah, the ones that were coming.
Yeah, like they're all SRs if I recall correctly.
So I guess switching the financial model that we're in right now, then what do you guys think about every booster box just kind of yielding? So at this point, the last two booster boxes have yielded the ruler of the box, right? So it's in my mind, it was like, here's this starter deck for 20, here's this starter deck for 15, and here's this other beefier starter deck for like 50. You know what I mean? Like being the booster box. What'd you guys think about sitting on like 9 of them rulers?
I still have a pile of them.
Right?
I'm not sure how I feel about that one yet.
I think I had like 40 extra Lennets or 50 extra Lennets. Like extra, as in like I didn't want to sell them. There were too many of them kind of deal. Not like, hey, I've got 50 total.
Yeah. Now, part of me thinks like, so when I opened up my case, I gave out a couple to some people in the local community. I was just like, here, have a Lenneth, here, have a Lenneth. And like that felt good to be able to do that, knowing that like the ruler really didn't carry a lot of value. And I also liked that it didn't, so like in the old booster boxes, I would open it up and I would guarantee that one of those packs had a ruler. I would be very pissed if in one of my 20 packs you were guaranteeing me that you were giving me a ruler, because I'd still have the same amount of rulers, but now you took away one of my slots for like the actual cards that I need, right? So I think they did a very good job having the ruler outside of the packs for these smaller booster boxes. You know what I mean? Like, because I feel like pulling a ruler in 1 out of 20 packs isn't rare enough to put it in the damn pack. Especially if it's the same ruler that you're always going to pull in 20 packs.
Well, normally when they're pullable in packs, they're different rulers.
Exactly.
Or they have variants in them. So basically, the thing with putting them in the packs is you're not limited to one. Because they could literally only put one ruler in each set, and it's kind of like a really, really small amount, right? So it's not like you're only getting one in a box, or like one of a specific card. It's one of a large variety of them, right? So I think in general, it's better for the box to have more rulers in it, like more diversity, and being able to pull them in the first place. Because even if you already have it, there's probably going to be a lot of people who don't have that ruler. And also, I guess we're not really guaranteed. Did they say it's guaranteed one a box? I don't actually remember them saying anything like that.
What do you mean?
Like, are you always guaranteed a ruler in a box, or is it like a set slot, like a rare or an SR?
It's the buy box.
No, for the new box.
Oh, for the new box, it's actually one of the random 3. It's the same thing. It's the same thing where you're going to get.
Oh, right. They're not in the packs, right? Okay.
Yep, they're not in the pack. But now going into AO3 with the 3 rulers. 3 rulers, no starter decks.
I think it's better because instead of having like a ridiculous over duplication of like Lenneth or Machina, you actually like, hey, I have like 2 Lenneth and I don't know, 1 machine, I'll swap you because we have extras or whatever. And it's like you still get the same amount, but now they're actually able to put more rulers in the same product without having to make you buy starter decks or what have you on the side, right?
And I think
I mean,
they
probably
upped the
a little
set
bit
size.
of value. I don't think they did.
I think they did. They had to.
Yep.
Oh, it's like 10 or 15 cards larger, right?
It's like 93 cards, I thought.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Is it actually that much bigger? I didn't actually.
It has to be, right? Because what they did was they
took
out the starter decks, right? So they took out the starter decks, which means that there's if you just have the starter deck of unique cards, there's 10 in the deck and 5 strangers. So there's at least 15 unique cards in each of the starter decks. So you would have to up your set by 30.
Oh, you mean cutting out the reprints, right?
I don't think they're cutting reprints.
I think they did, because I don't remember them being mentioned. It doesn't have it as.
They did. It's like 50 something normal cards, I want to say.
Yeah, it says normal, rare, super.
Yeah,
52 kinds of normal.
Yeah, that's way bigger. But I think they're gonna be reprints. I don't think
they would have to. I don't know how many. Do you know offhand how many reprints they were doing in AO3?
I mean, all of your normals were minus 4 or 5 cards. Like there were only 4 and 5 unique normals.
Technically, the set was a lot larger because Memoria is counted as its own set, technically, but they're basically like AO1, this is a slot in AO1, and AO2, this is a slot in AO2. They're not actually like a Memoria set. So technically, the set was actually really huge. It just, you only pulled from that in the one slot. And Memoria isn't listed there as far as I could see. So they're cutting that part of the pack out. So I don't know. Like, I get what you mean in terms of set size. They didn't actually. Is it even listed on the site? I don't see it. There's no like public facing information for the new set, right? It just goes in the shell.
Yeah, honestly nobody's talked about AO3.
So yeah, I mean, there's not really a whole lot to go on other than the sales sheet from the distributors, but
yeah, which listed.
It's very minimal with the new company. That is the one thing I used to like a lot more about the old company, is they actually tell you what's in the product in advance. Like, hey, this is going to have Kaguya cards or whatever, like some sort of basic summary, right?
Yeah.
The ones that I Spy sends out just say the exact same thing. Like, if you look at the Ghost in the Shell on the website right now, it says product name, release date, booster breakdown, and that's all you see. That there's nothing, doesn't tell you anything about the set. It just like, there is 52 normals in this set, and it's like, well, what if I'm not an expert on Forcible? What does that tell me right now?
What does that
It tells
mean?
me literally nothing. If I read a Pokemon, it'll say this set has Dedenne in it, or it's gonna come with 52 new cards or something. This one just says normal, rare, super, secret. That is something nice about Ghost in the Shell, is it's secret. But,
yeah.
But you see what I'm saying?
Oh, there is a secret in Ghost in the
but
Shell.
only for
isn't there?
Ghost in the Shell, yeah. Well, as far as we know, it's not listed on the on the other one.
Oh, I'm a goober.
And I think it's like the starter decks for AO1. It's like question mark was one of the things listed on the sale sheet. I'm like, you can't tell me there's a slot and not tell me what the slot is. Like
God, what
question
was
mark
the
cards.
slot?
It was I think it was the Memoria or it was the Strangers, but it just said like, yeah, it was Strangers because of the starter decks. It's a question mark cards. And I'm like, hey, well, that helps, I guess. I'll put that on the sales page. Like,
And you can have question marks. So many questions. Come by
I mean,
force
you
of
had a
them.
lot of questions when you opened a pack and you got extras of the Strangers, but
Yeah. When I opened that first starter deck, and I'm like, cool, play sets of things I can only do or two of.
you have no idea how many people were like, I think they messed up. They're all missing a card. I'm like, no, you got to open that extra pack on the side because they threw extra Strangers in the main for some reason, or
Yep.
who knows.
I don't know what that was.
I think they had a printing error where they were missing certain cards because they're manufactured in sheets, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the way that they're sorted in the decks is it's like 4 of 1 or 1 of 1 card, 1 of 1 card, 1 of 1 card, then it repeats, right? I think what happened is one of the sheets got mixed up. So you got like extra Strangers and then you just were missing all these other cards. That's why there's like a pack with specific cards that are always in the same order and they're always the ones that are missing from the main deck.
That makes sense.
And it'll be like one Levitine and like one of a bunch of other things. You're like, oh, these are important. I'm glad that there's this pack here that fills in those gaps. That would be my guess, is they had a really big printing problem, and that's how they fixed it, was they just threw an extra pack in there, like, done.
Probably. So, tell me this, because the community has given a lot of flack to that memorial slot. How
pretty good
are
slot.
your guys' memorial sales?
Really good for what Memoria is. It's just
Right?
dead common normally, but I sell so many of
sell
those.
so many memorias.
Like, I remember I posted on the Canada group the other month. I was like, sorry guys, I'm really late doing this, but here's all the Memoria. And someone was like, you sell those? I was like, oh yeah, buddy.
Oh,
I
yeah.
definitely sell those.
Like,
But I noticed
everybody.
AO1's Memoria were a lot more popular than AO2.
Yeah, everybody was just like, oh man, this is junk card. La la la. But, like, I think there are a lot of people. Like, I think that was a really smart move because they're not overprinted. Like, in the case, I didn't get a playset of a single one. You know what I mean?
You need 2 cases for a playset.
Yeah.
It's literally
I-
2 to 3 memorias.
I think in like
That's
3
what it was.
cases, I got 4 of like 1 Memoria. Like, it's almost impossible to do playsets of Memoria.
Yeah, because, like, having a 73 card pool that you only get one
card
per,
from that pool.
you only get 36 cards or you only get 20 cards in a box. Like, yeah, you're good luck. But
yeah,
like,
I don't actually remember what it was from AO1, but because I started hoarding all the memorias for AO2, I have a playset of all of them, and it took me exactly 2 cases. It was super frustrating.
super question.
Yeah,
'Cause, yeah.
it's just one of those things where people are like, can you set me aside 2 of those? I'm like, I don't even know I'll have 2 at the end of this, so good luck with that.
Yeah. No, it's been great because, like, when I was texting you guys last week and I was like, yeah, let's do this, like, I was looking in TCG Player and, like, all 5 of my orders were just, like, for memorias. I'm like, what? I was like, why is this selling? I was like, I love it, though, because
Yeah.
I think that there's a lot of newer players that just don't have access to those older cards, right? We're flooding with, like, these newer cards that can be in circulation, different, nice, newly printed cards, and then it kind of aids because, like, Rachel's one of the cards. That was an expensive card. Severing Winds
I think
is a card.
both Rachels are actually in there, I'm pretty sure. So you actually
Both
have
Rachels.
double the amount of Rachels you can pull.
Yeah,
Severing Winds, Fluorite.
Fluorite, yeah.
Fluorite was a really big one.
But yeah,
Aaron
Erendite's
the
actually that was
Lightning
that
Storm.
Erendite's one of them, right?
Or
Yeah,
Lightning
that
Cave, sorry.
Erendite.
That's a good one.
Erendite, Lightning Cave, Thunder, I want to say.
yeah,
Yeah, Thunder.
yeah.
And the Lightning Strike,
You
actually.
got
Yeah, those
both.
are both there. Yeah,
Yeah,
Thunder
you
and
got
Lightning
both
Strike.
of those.
Heat's Ray, for
yes.
those who couldn't get it as a rare in the actual, was also Memoria slot. Like, it actually hit like 3 markets. It was like Wanderer reprints because there's not as much in the US and Canada, but I know in Europe it's still really large to play Wanderer. And also there's Epic Stories and stuff like that. And even for me as a store, I have a lot of Wanderer cards that just aren't sorted or done because there's it's a low priority because they're just so cheap, right? Like we said, you could buy a box and get every card, so it's not like
Yeah.
I'm making hand over fist money when I sell Wanderer cards. I'm making like tens of cents each, right? So,
Yeah, I got a
but
whole shelf unsorted Wanderer
right,
that I just
but
like.
the Memoria is all together and it's sorted and it's numbered and everything. I'm just like, okay, whatever. Memoria 1, Memoria 2, Memoria 3. And then my people who want Wanderer cards like, oh, he's got Heaven's Rift, I'll take it. And it's like, that's cool, but I only have it because of Memoria, whatever, it works for you.
Yeah.
But it also does the draftability of the set.
Mhm.
It's obviously a big thing for selling sealed packs. Like, hey, you can
I
hold the draft
did.
because the decks are easier to play with because you can actually have synergy. Great.
I did really enjoy that because like there was a super wild card factor to playing with these
yeah.
Memorias
Like
in limited.
limited with you like Lapis's Darkstorm and stuff. It's like, oh shoot, there goes 2 cards. Or like a final battle, like, oh, there's my J Ruler. Like,
Yeah, and like
such
these
huge
aren't cards you
power
can play
swinging cards.
around, you
Yeah.
know? Like you're never like, oh man, my opponent might have Severing Winds. I should like not play 2 cards right now because like you just don't play around that. But like it's there.
And then the third market that it kind of hits is the promo artwork because a lot of people like that artwork, but there isn't a feasible way for them to get them at this point. Because, for example, I think I might have 4 or 3 of that Rachel with like the actual full art Rachel, where the text is super super small so that they can fit more of the artwork in there. Which I actually
Isn't that
like. I know a lot of people.
Chinese?
No, I have them.
That's a
They're
different one.
English.
Oh, are they? They're English.
Yeah, you're thinking, yeah. Like they're actually on proper card stock on like the Chinese copies.
Good.
They're actually full art, and I remember I pulled them at the ARG Nationals or whatever, and Alex Bland was like, "That's a real card." I was like, "Bro, I told you I had these." Like, I didn't think you meant like in your hand, like for real. But yeah, like they're like stuff like that stands out a lot. So I hope they do more in that kind of style, even if it's not the most popular. But
Yeah.
stuff like that, I have like 5 of them. If you wanted a copy, well, I mean, only one person can have a set now at this point, right? So good luck. But if you have the promo artwork, you can at least get the artwork, even if it's not a full art foil or whatever, right? So it doesn't kill the promo market, which is already not the greatest for some of those older cards. But
Yeah.
for those ones that are really demanded, like the Lightning Cave, there's GP promo, the Rachel, stuff like that, they can get it in an easily accessible and cheap way without having to give an arm and a leg to get the card.
Yeah.
And they might even just get it from packet random or what have you, right?
So Emilio, when it comes to how you've been doing, like how much product and how quickly are you moving sealed? Because like you mainly work in sealed, right?
For the most part, I've been trying to get more into sealed, and not just with Force of Will, but for the new sets, I've been doing pretty well. Like if I wanted to just sit on sealed boxes and sell them at, I mean, at this point, pretty much whatever price point you want, 70, 75 even, you could. If ever there was a time to sell sealed for Force of Will, I think now is the time. So it's more of an issue of not being able to get enough product to sell sealed and singles.
Yep.
Yeah, it's
People
kind of
still aren't pre-ordering as much as they probably should.
they should definitely be pre-ordering.
Who?
Well, both. Like us as stores, like ordering a lot more product, but
Yeah.
people should be pre-ordering because I think the biggest example is DBV. It's like, well, there's not always enough, and it's definitely a first come first serve thing. But also, it was because people didn't pre-order, the low run was so much lower. So because people didn't pre-order, there was less product, and any product we did have was out the door. And that's why he's like, hey man, we should pre-order. It's probably important. It's like, yeah, it's a lot more important than most people would understand.
Yeah. So kind of spidering off of that,
Sorry, I kinda cut him off
AO3
there.
AO3 was advertised for pre-order before Ghost in a Shell.
Yes.
Even though it'll release after Ghost in a Shell.
Yes.
Theories on why the hell that happened.
One of them involves third-party licensing.
I could agree with that. I could agree with that.
I'll be honest.
If you sell a Bushiroad product, you will know a lot about third-party licensing and how it affects set printings, productions, orders, and actually getting the product at the end of the day.
All right, talk about it. Talk about it then, because like it sounds like you know. Because like
All right.
part of the questions that I have with this is how much time does a company need to get the orders, print, and distribute. You know what I mean? Like, what does that
So
look
you
like?
want
2
like from the
weeks?
industry
3
side,
weeks?
my
Yeah.
side, the customer side? You want
Let's
all this?
go.
Okay,
Let's
so
go industry
I'm
side.
I'm Force of Will.
Yes.
I got Ghost in the Shell. All right, I've got all these files, and I'm showing them to you as a pre-release or like preview. This is what the card's gonna look like, right? It's probably already printed, and this is like 3 months before the product would be out. It's like this is already printed. This is in my table. If there was a mistake on Levitine, it'll be in errata because there's no way to fix this.
3 months before?
Yeah, they print them pretty decent in advance because they're from like Singapore or Japan or China or wherever the
Then
India.
what the hell is the point of the pre? Okay, but our
So
pre-orders are due 3
I
months
have
before.
pre-orders a lot more. So like, let's say the Ghost in the Shell. I think it was kind of weird actually with the Ghost in the Shell. I think they actually printed it pretty late compared to where they should have been printing it. But generally they'd be like in January, they'd be like, "Hey, is this done? Because we're printing this like today." Like there's a specific cutoff date where your supplier has to tell Force of Will, I want 1,000 cases, or I want 100 cases, or I want 5 cases, and at that point, at that cutoff, is when they print the product.
Right. So
So basically, as soon as the store has locked in, it's already printed.
So
and any orders filled after that point is going to be coming from the print run that's already there.
and that was my timeline that I kind of had in my head, was that it was 3 months, but we weren't offered pre-orders on Ghost in a Shell till 2 months before release.
Yes, I think that's probably just a licensing thing because they probably weren't allowed to say officially that this is the release date and this is the price and this is the amount of cards that we're going to have in there, because I'm assuming they, one, didn't want to spoil anything involving the set because it's a tie-in with the Netflix series. And 2, they probably didn't have the licensing finalized until, I don't know, like 2 months ago or what have you, for a full set of Ghost in the Shell.
Okay.
And all the characters it's going to involve and all the card text and all that kind of stuff. Because going in it from like the Weiss side, the Bushy Road stuff, when they license animes, they have to be like, hey, this is the set we're going to use. These are the characters we're going to use. There's going to be X amount of cards in the set. Can we buy it? And if we are going to buy this license, how much is it going to cost? And then they'll say, okay, you need to include X of Makoto, or like it's always got to be these pictures or her in this art style. And they'll say, okay, that's fine. We're going to try and release it in May. And they're like, no, our show actually releases in June. So I would like you to release this in June instead. You'd be like, oh, okay. Because if I recall, Ghost in the Shell actually just started. Either it just started very recently or it's going to start very recently.
Yeah, it's going to start the 23rd.
So that's probably why they said it's going to be on May. And it's like, well, that's pretty much the exact launch date of the Ghost in the Shell show, right?
So one of our viewers has the dates. Pre-orders for Ghost in the Shell ended 3/24, and pre-orders for AO3 ended 3/10, right? So that's AO3 is 2 months before release. No, 3. That's 3 months, because it's end of May, something like that. Maybe 2.5 months. But then Ghost in a Shell, that's only a month. So
yeah,
pre-orders
it's
ended.
pretty tight deadlines. In fact, I even had my supplier call me like, hey, apparently they offered you can cancel your pre-order if you don't want it. And I'm like, that's kind of weird. It's really close. Like, it's almost always like sitting in a warehouse ready to go at this point. And they're like, hey, did you still want that order? I'm like, I do. It's really weird you're asking me at this point in the timeline, but I get with the whole socioeconomic situation what's going on.
Yeah.
But even just going back to your example with the Rudy thing, Rudy would have ordered that like way in advance, like January or whatever, like just like your viewer said.
Rudy went on record saying that he ordered out the ass on Ghost in a Shell. Like he's going all in on
with the Ghost.
in
He
a
said
Shell.
he's going to be the most carried in the US, isn't like that. But
Oh,
that's why, because for DBV, no one pre-ordered because a lot of players like, oh, it's half reprints. Why would I ever buy this garbage product? So no one pre-ordered. So the stores didn't pre-order because they weren't getting player pre-orders. That cutoff date happens, and let's say it's 50% less amount of people pre-ordered than the last Force of Will set. The way the allocation works from the print run is if I say I want 50 pallets as a distributor or whatever, Force will be like, okay, we'll do 55 or 60 or what have you. There's like a percentage extra over what we order to cover random influx in demand. Like, oh, it's DBV, it's pretty popular. Good thing we have this extra 5 cases here, right? But when the orders go down so substantially, all of a sudden it's like there's only like 5 cases total, and like, oh shit, I better get in on that because it's just so much lower printing. And to have the company go back and print it again is substantially more expensive. And you see that like Rudy talking about that with Magic a lot too, where it'd be like they do 3 waves of print runs. The first one's really, really big, and then the second one's pretty big, and then the third one's like this big, and then they talk it over and decide if they're going to do a fourth one or not. But with smaller companies like Yu-Gi-Oh! And Forcible, like even in comparison to Magic, for print runs, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a lot smaller because of the way they do their sets. They actually don't know if there's ever even going to be a second run a lot of the time. And Yu-Gi-Oh! Is big enough where they do second, and so is Pokemon and those kind of games, but very few games will get like third or fourth print runs. And even games like Weiss, Vanguard, all that kind of stuff, they're not large enough that they can usually do a second run at all.
Yeah,
So
Force
that's
of
why when
Will,
people-
like we haven't.
It's not big enough to do second print runs. Maybe when it like in the heyday and like Alice Cluster when they would keep printing the set as long as it's in rotation.
Which they did. I
Yeah.
mean, we had instances where like I know LEL got a second print run. I know Time Spinning Witch got a second print run, and that's because we went from hard boxes to soft, right? Like there was...
It didn't actually see a print. Like it was really weird because they were supposed to do a very large print run, and it was like maybe like 5% of what they were planning on doing. In fact, I never actually got any in Canada. Forcible. They didn't actually print anywhere near as much Time Spinning Witch as they said they were going to. So we'd actually never got a second print run in Canada.
Oh, wow.
But I know there is actually some distributors in the States that did get a run, but it's not even all the ones in the States. Only like half of them got a print run of that. So there was a second print run, and it was a really high demand set. But for whatever reason, the company actually drastically undershot what Jeff and everyone else thought they were going to do.
So, with a month, is it safe to say that the cards were printed before the pre-orders were done? Or did they wait? And like,
I actually
are they
think
on
they
like a
probably
1 month?
I think they probably waited based on the way that call went, and I'm not really sure how that's going to work out, especially with the whole economic situation. It's really weird that they were being so tight, but I think they probably held it late this time just because of how they had to wait for the okay from all the different factors.
Interesting.
Yes, it will. It'll be really interesting. I'm actually curious to see if it even hits the release date that they're aiming for with how everything's been going, both with how they've been doing it and how the world's working right now.
So
I would be very surprised to see it hit on the May 1st.
With AO3, also doing pre-orders at the exact same time, I know a lot of wallet fatigue. Emilio, how did you split between the two?
I got very little Ghost in the Shell.
Did you really? All right, so hold on. Why? Give me the why, because like Millhouse in our chat has like an awesome question. He says, "Do you think the Ghost in the Shell might be in demand when things go back to normal, since people A likely ordered AO3 first, which is very true. It came on the market first, right? So B would prefer AO3, and C don't have enough for both sets. So why did you choose AO3 over Ghost in the Shell?"
Kind of a big part of it was I didn't want to go too crazy with how much I was buying right now with everything going on. And I there's another card game that I'm kind of all in on right now. So I was
Which one?
A little bit careful of, getting anything outside of AO3 because I'm 100% certain that set's going to do really well. Ghost in the Shell, I'm still not really sure about. And I just couldn't talk myself into doing it. I think there's an argument for it, but I just couldn't do it.
Yep. Dylan?
No, I definitely understand where he's coming from, because a lot of people always ask, like, oh, why didn't your store order 40,000 of this one, or why did they order 20 of this? Well, not only do you have like there's 2 Force of Will sets in the same month, but there might also be like a Yu-Gi-Oh and a Pokemon and a Weiss. Like I can't have like 10 cases of each of these games, right? So I kind of got to prioritize. Is Ghost in the Shell going to sell better than AO3? Well, maybe. It might not. I actually probably don't think it will. It's like, okay, so then I need to have X more cases of AO3 because I think that one's going to do better. So I got to take the funds that I was going to put for that and put it over here. And it's kind of exasperated a lot, or I don't think it's the right word. It's kind of amplified a lot more when they have the same series, like 2 Forcible products in a month. Because then I'm like, well, I would normally put X amount of money in, but now I got to split that between 2, and it's the same period, right?
Yes.
So, but honestly, I think Ghost in the Shell is probably going to be ordered a lot less, other than Rudy, of course. So there's going to be less of it. So
Mhm.
I actually put the same amount into Ghost in the Shell as I did AO3.
But you
So
split the normal funds between the two?
no, I'm kind of making it one of them doing well at this point.
Okay, so you put in like a
Yeah, I put
normal
in this. I put
quantity.
in the normal quantity for both. Yeah.
So
Um,
I did the exact same thing. My model is a lot smaller though, right? So like
mhm.
being a player, like part of my buying is so that I get my playset collection. So it really doesn't matter. Like I'm always getting the same amount, but like I
Yep.
didn't hesitate. I did not hesitate to double invest in this month. Yes, it absolutely hurt. Yes, it absolutely hurt. But if at any time you are feeling those things, right? If you're just like, man, there's two things I don't want to split, you and everybody and their mothers are feeling the exact same thing, which means that if other people aren't going to buy it, you might need to buy it. All right? Because that is low demand or that is low supply at that point. And I got a feeling there is going to be very low supply on AO3 and Ghost in a Shell because of the exact stuff we talked about here. Some people only allocate so many funds. If you give them two things to buy, they will split the order 50-50. They won't buy twice as much of each. You know what I mean? And
And I
so,
think it's gonna. Oh, sorry.
no, so I think that's exactly where we're at. I think that Ghost in a Shell has the potential to be awesome, right? New company hasn't printed anything low power yet. All three of their sets that they've had just 100% control over have been lights out. Absolutely lights out. The new distribution model is absolutely fine. They are going to go along with something that is being released in the States, right? This is an anime being released on Netflix. This is like everybody can watch this. Everyone is going to, right? It's going to be a big thing, not like whatever the Valkyrie Chronicles was. Like not such a big thing, you know. So like this has the potential, right? And so with that, I am going in the way that I was. Millhouse brings out that there is a chance that this set just doesn't even jive with what the rest of the cluster is even doing.
I think it's possible, but I think basically the way to look at this is they're actually kind of different in a pretty strategic way. One of them's aimed at collectors and fans of Ghost in the Shell, with also the secondary focus being players, and the other one is primarily focused at players and playability, with the secondary focus being on collectors. So they're kind of opposites in a way, and I guess that's why the company put them in the same month. But as a player, you kind of have to go for both anyway. One thing I noticed going into AO2 is there's a lot less secondary market sellers for the single cards. At least initially, when people are cracking boxes, it seems like a lot of them are smaller tier people, like regular players selling a TCG player and that kind of stuff. And what that means is when things like Ghost in the Shell and AO3 come in the same month, they're just a lot less of a single market. And it's not even like if the cards become expensive, they'll just suddenly like flood the market on TCG player, because a lot of stores are still gonna have to face their time with, do I open this box or do I open these ones? And I can only manage so many singles. So I think just as a single seller for either set, you're probably in a decent spot, because there's just going to be less of the product
competition. Yeah.
Even if the boxes are plentiful, there's still less single cards than there would otherwise be.
Yep. So you guys gonna spend some of them Trump bucks to get, or sorry, Dylan.
Sorry. There's a similar thing happening for us, but not to the scale of what they're doing over there. It's more like an actual kind of paperwork filing thing than like, hey, here's a check from everyone with Trump's name on it.
Yeah, no, that was, I mean, all of a sudden it was just like they told me they were going to do it, and then in my account, I was just like, whoa, wow, it's there. Oh, okay. But yeah, no, Millhouse, he brings up that he thinks that people would just buy AO3 because it more supplements AO1 and AO2. I think my counter argument there is that AO2 didn't supplement AO1 at all outside of 3 cards. Like I think I remember seeing that specifically is like in the set, Faria got one specific card. It was the Light of the Sacred Queen or whatever. I don't. And then Machina got one card in the evil elemental thing. And then did Lenneth even get a card? Lenneth
I
had
think
to.
you mean Melgis, not Machina, right?
What did I say? Oh, I said Machina.
Said
Yeah,
Machina.
no,
Yeah,
Melgus.
Melgis got his spirit thing.
Yeah, Melgus got his spirit thing, and then Lenneth, I think, got. What did Lenneth get?
She got something. I don't.
I
I
don't know.
also don't remember
But like,
what
it was literally just one card. And so the rest of it, like, you just had to piece together through creative deck building. And so, like, that's why I'm not worried about the Ghost in the Shell, because by looking at it, if I had to safely guess, it looks like it's going to be colorless and blue, right? By the boxes, like we've been given hints at this point, right? When the box is blue and green, it's majority blue and green. When the box is like going to be red and white, majority of it's going to be red and white. You know what I mean? So like looking at the Ghost in the Shell, if it's like gray and blue, I'm going to assume it's going to be a colorless and blue set, you know? And so I think with a lot of colorless cards, I think you're actually going to be able to supplement quite a bit. I don't know if the general public looked that far. I got a feeling they probably all assumed the same thing. I know that when Force of Will created the Lost Tome starter deck, that didn't jive with anything. We got a legend mechanic or a historic mechanic that did nothing.
You just kind of got to look at it from a different kind of lens, because, for example, Vingolf 1, and this is what you should kind of more or less go along. Lost Tomes of Vingolf are the side sets of each cluster, respectively, that weren't related directly to the main sets, but they still impacted the formats and the cards that were in there. So with Vingolf 1, it wasn't designed to work with the main cards mostly, but there was still a lot of runaway hits like Rasputin. There was the dual stone reprints from a market standpoint that was pretty substantial, and players got them easier. There was a couple runoffs like Berserk Rush or something like that. It's like a Valhalla card they just threw in there randomly. And it's like, well, it was actually like a really, really big deal because it gave all your guys Pierce and a buff. So things like Grandmas and Little Reds and stuff were all of a sudden like an actual deck on their own. And these are like random MOA and NPR throwaway cards. It's like, now these are a deck. It's like, so these have really big impacts. And then if you go to Vingolf 2, it didn't have that. It was all just faced around Valkyria Chronicles. But if you go to Vingolf 3, everything was so deeply tied to every single card. It was like a polar opposite of the other two. Like every ruler had like a supplement card that helped them work in their capacity somehow. Even like what was the Melgis? No, not shoot. Rezard? Not Rezard. Was it Rezard? It gave your ruler imperishable. Like a couple random vampires and stuff like that actually had direct interaction with rulers, and there's lots of really good value cards in terms of like reprints and stuff.
Yeah, there was good reprints.
Actually, was there reprints in Vingolf 3? It's been so long since
Vingolf 3, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think Vingolf 3.
Vingolf 3, they had the reprints.
Rapid growth, right?
Well, all of the spells.
Yeah, they extended legality for a lot of cards.
Yeah,
actually,
which was the cool part, right? They took.
Yeah, that was a big thing too. Like, it was just a really good set, and you got everything in each of those. Lost Tomes, Vingolf. The thing about this new one is it's not a set box. You get packs. So there's variants, and that makes it harder for certain cards to get. But the other thing is that it could be like Vingolf 3, where it actually snaps in fittingly without being part of the main story block.
Yep. And I mean, it also, like, I know that with a lower set, like, buying the case, you're going to just have more. And so that was something that I ended up banking on, that like I will have my playset a lot easier, and I will have more cards to offer to the single market, because I don't feel like there's going to be a lot on the market. I'm very excited to see what the secret is.
Class G tank, hell yeah.
Dude, Class G tank was the shit.
I actually wanted to talk about that because I was complaining earlier about how we have chase cards, but I realized that Ghost in the Shell had 2 secret rares.
Yep. That's another thing for collectors, right? Well, that's why I said it's like a different market, because they're clearly like, that's very telling that that's the only product we've seen revealed with secret listed. It's like, well, the secrets are a collector thing. The Ghost in the Shell card set has a secret rare. I feel like this is more aimed at collectors, but I don't think it's the point where they're going to abandon the set's playability.
Yeah.
I would be surprised, yeah.
Yep. But yeah, so yeah, I guess in short, like when nobody else is buying, you should buy. That's the name of the game. But
I think I
awesome,
sold like 2 cases of DBV because no one bought it. That was great. And then I
dude.
sold so many single cards. I bought some from you, Ethan.
Yeah, yeah. I
Like that's how
yeah, I made
demanded
it.
the cards were. I literally bought them from you.
I when I bought my initial case, I ended up kind of keeping an eye on the market, and I found another case on eBay a month and a half later. I mean, I paid for it. We paid $120 a box,
Whew.
and still doubled our money on that. Like, doubled our money on a case, paying $120 a box for DBV. Like,
Making me feel worse about my
But
decision.
you saw that the cards were selling for a lot of the
Oh,
single
absolutely,
box are
yeah.
worth it, right? But there was so many people who didn't see that, like all the way to like GPs were happening kind of thing. Like there was actually a point where I had just a case, a DBV, sitting on my shelf. No one was buying it, and I'm like, it doesn't make sense. I should just crack this for packs and just like open the packs and sell the singles, right? Well, yeah, like the next month, everyone was like, "Hey, can I get this? Can I have this?" I'm like, "Well, it's a little late now. Like the card's like $30 a piece. Like,
yeah, yeah.
of course you're gonna want a box now, but it's way too late.
No,
It
and
took
that
a long
was,
time
I
for people
think,
to see that.
as another thing, like, DBV just blew up. So part of me, like, I've done it successfully. I think I definitely AO1 and DBV. Like, I was able to tell the patrons and everyone in our Discord like what cards to target early, and so people were able to get like the expensive cards that they needed back when they were listed early at like $5. So like for everyone that's not gonna buy sealed, like make sure that you pay attention to the Force of Will market within the first week of release. Okay, it is going to be like mass flooded for a minute. And a lot of times, like, only really the players, like the people that you see sitting here, know like the real value on these cards. For the most part, all of your big box crackers just have some algorithm that says all the rares are going to be listed for this, all the super rares are going to be listed for this, all of this, and this is how we're going to make 20% on a box. And that's fine when you're opening like 1,000 boxes, right? What's good for us is knowing which cards are a lot crazier than others. You're able to swipe them from those sellers. Get them early, get your playsets within the first week, because after that, you're in this world that we're in right now.
Pre-sales are a good opportunity to snipe those. 'Cause I remember I think the Forest was pre-selling for like $12 or something, and I'm like, that's the same price as like Dance in the Moonlight. I think the Forest or the Hot Springs, sorry, is going to be a lot better than Dance in the Moonlight. Turns out I was right, but you know the pre-sellers don't know that. Most of
No,
the pre-sellers have no way of knowing if the card's going to be good or not.
nope.
So
That card's
Pre-selling,
really good for CL, Josh.
yeah.
Very good.
yeah, I think that's a good example. Sometimes how it backfires because I think CL was actually a really expensive pre-order, and then people are like, "Oh, she has
Yeah.
a flip side that can die before it happens." So, so like it is a grain of salt kind of thing. And for the record, I saw in the comments you said it was like, or you don't want to get kicked like DBV. I don't think it's going to be a DBV style shortage if there is one. I think it's going to be like after a month, people realize there isn't as much as they thought or what have you. And
Yeah.
I think Rudy going in on it will probably affect that a bit too.
Oh
But
yeah. What's
it's definitely one of those things where I think you should definitely keep your eye on it.
what's AO2 at right now? You said it's like on
$80.
$80.
$80.
Can I still get it? I'm pretty sure I can. I have at least one box in the store right now, so it's not like it's
If you
super
can get it, you
big.
should get
But
it.
Yeah,
sure.
so
it might
Anybody
be
that
too
can get
late.
it.
This was
Oftentimes,
something
if
that-
it gets to this point, it's already too late. But
yeah, now I swiped AO1. I swiped a couple of those early. Like, what's that price looking at right now? It's probably
AO1
$70.
is
72
gold
to
right now.
75.
What, really? Wow.
Yeah.
I'm surprised
I'm-
you guys even have AO1.
Dude, like, but that's what I mean. It's like supply is absolutely gone. And like, the crazy part about this is those two sets, those are still going to be legal for a year and a half. Like, a year and a half, and you can't find sealed boxes. Come on, that is the first two sets that this
Yep.
new company has released. And anybody wants to say it's not safe to buy a Force of Will product? Come on.
For AO1 specifically, I think it goes back a little bit more to the pre-order amount versus the sales amount. Because I noticed that the sets have been selling a lot better since DBV, and I don't think it's because of DBV. I think it's because the game itself It's in a different spot than it was back then. I think it was Mike Grants that said Renaissance period, where it's like kind of booming and gaining traction. So
Yeah.
I think that's part of why AO1 didn't have as much product in, but AO2 has been doing really, really well, and it's not due to lack of orders. It's just actually like firing off.
Well, you know what? COVID-19 like really fucked a lot of momentum that we had going as a Force of Will community. Like the chatter before Vegas
It was
crazy.
it was crazy.
Crazy. Everybody was about this game. And then like the grind for Minnesota was like, dude, we were all jacked and ready. But
So
like,
many people are like, I need to get these boxes exactly the day before so I can compete in this event, and it's gonna
And
be
those
crazy.
promos.
And everything gets revealed basically the week of, and the
dude,
promos.
those promos.
Yeah.
The Uber Supers, man. We have to wait another month to get Uber Supers. Ah, man.
I do want to add, as somebody who did come into the game pretty late, in the time that I've been playing, I've never seen anything like this, just to put it into perspective.
Yeah. Millhouse asks, would you recommend sitting on sealed product for Ghost in the Shell, assuming price will go up? And at what EV would you decide to crack for singles? So I can say personally that I don't have the capital to sit on sealed product. It's just not in my game. You know, it's not in my portfolio. It's not something that I can do. Whenever I buy product, it is solely to flip as singles. Like I can sit on singles like just a lot better. My shelving and all that, like everything is equipped for singles, and I can recuperate funds a lot faster in singles, right? So like
They're liquid.
I'm playing with like a $2,000 like window budget here that I also use for travel and all that stuff. So like just to take $1,000 of that, or even 500 of it, and just be like, here's a case, I'm gonna sit on it and like wait for it to double. Like that just doesn't work in my model though. In terms,
They're kind of like entirely different too, right?
In terms of just strictly the numbers, I think there's no reason why you don't sit on sealed. There's absolutely no reason. Force of Will is flying off the shelf in sealed box, and especially in these easy to bite boxes that we're getting now, where it's just like where the original retails like $50. Like I think you can buy them. I don't know what distribution price is, but like Potomac, I get them for 48, something along those lines, right? And so we're talking about what is it, 30 or 60% increase in price in just AO2, 40% increase in AO1. Like, I think those are good returns. But like, how much are you sitting on? You know, like how much are you sitting on before 40% is like worth it? You know, tying up that kind of capital. Like if we're talking about one case, you know, we're talking $400, maybe 380. You're talking about upping it $20 a box. You're talking about making $160, 160, $240 over 3 to 6 months. I mean, maybe if that's in your wheelhouse, you know what I mean? For me, it's not in the wheelhouse, especially since I have to ship. So like you're talking like $10 in shipping usually when you're selling boxes and shit. So like for me, wheeling and sealed's not it. But what do you think, Emilio?
I think if you can do it, go for it. I also have like kind of the luxury to sell on my own site, so I don't have to pay like seller fees or anything like that. But if it's something that you can do, especially with how the game is going, I absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the biggest thing is like we said, it's going to be legal for another year and a half, if not longer. Like there's a chance, like if like we can probably talk pretty honestly about this, like if COVID-19 sucks and continues to suck, we might be pushing dates. You know what I mean? If you push dates, then rotation is later, right? So we're getting later into, right? And then honestly, we haven't seen the boom yet. Like, and that's what I'm holding out for the most, like the resurgence. If you just double our current population, like, woof, they're gonna sell like hotcakes, you know? So I think it's worth it if you absolutely can. If you absolutely can sit on it, there's no reason not to. This new company, everything that they've printed has at least doubled in value. You know?
One thing I would say is that if you don't have the cap, like what Josh was saying, if you're not equipped to sit on it, don't sit on it. Like
Yeah.
if you're buying a case and you're like, this could be pretty good in a year from now, it's like, do you have like $1,000 to sit on for a year? Because most people don't. So if that's not you, don't do that. Like
Yeah.
it's definitely a good idea if you're prepared to actually sit on it until it is worth something, and that could take some time.
Yeah.
The other thing is just to keep in mind that the sealed box prices don't necessarily reflect the single card prices. It's especially true for a lot of the older sets, which is kind of what you're thinking about in these long-term investments, where like a box of time spinning, which is substantially more than you would ever get from packs or even single cards of time spinning, which because the box is like impossible to come across, two towers, sets like that. The box is a collector thing as a sealed product. It's entirely separate from the singles, unless you're trying to crack them for singles. And if you're doing that, then you probably would want to crack them earlier than you would think, right? Rather than keeping them as a sealed box.
Exactly.
Or it's like a whole thing. Like, are you going to keep sitting on it as a sealed box, or are you going to keep sitting on it and then crack it into single cards? That's
What I have found in my history of selling is that usually after set 2 of a new cluster is usually prime time to get off of your previous cluster. After set 2, so like when we have 6 sets, okay, that is prime time to get off of your previous cluster. In Force of Will, there is a like the Wanderer market is just terrible. It is absolutely terrible. As soon as it rotates out of New Frontiers, value just right. So I would go off and say that like if you were going to sit on this, I would definitely be aiming for 1 year. And then I wouldn't sit on it longer than a year. Because our players, I know, like for me personally, when I first got into the game, like as a new player, I didn't rush to buy old cards. I patiently waited 9 months till rotation, and then I was caught up. You know what I mean? And so there's a good amount of players that probably have that mentality where they don't need to go back and buy the old cards. They will wait patiently for rotation, you know? And rotation is like your worst enemy as a seller in Force of Will.
Mm-hmm.
So, but after or at release of set 2 is best time to get off of your previous cluster. Well, AO1, AO2 singles went down after a while overall, with only the good stuff staying high. So for max sales, early is better in general, but with COVID, money is tighter and might not be that way. For Ghost in the Shell and AO3.
It's kind of the market is settled. Part of it is there is an events going on right now, so it's going to affect playable cards. If the card isn't like a fan favorite, like Priscia specific cards, like if it's like an auxiliary card to her, for example, then it's probably not going to see a lot of sales unless someone really wants the card specifically.
And let's be honest, if no one's playing, nobody's buying.
Right. And well, kind of like it's a bit hit and miss. Like I think we were talking a little bit earlier before the stream started about how like what's the card for the Gorgons that summons the Gorgons from your deck from AO2?
Oh yeah.
That suddenly saw a pretty big spike in terms of all of our sales. Like people are starting to buy them, whereas in GP season, no one was buying Forbidden Summoning. I think that's what it's called. So it's not necessarily related 100% to the card's playability or even its desirability. It might just be like everyone bought all the Priscia cards. Now no one needs to purchase Wang Longs and stuff like that because they've already filled their collection. But now that they have some time that isn't in GP season, they want to fill out the rest of their sets, right? I want a full play set, so I'll go back and grab now the Valentina cards or the Machina cards or whatever. But also, it just kind of settles. Like, if I think that Super Beast Burning Rush is the best card in the set, then so does everyone else. And then a month later, everyone's like, okay, it wasn't actually that good. Well, now you're going to see the market kind of level out there.
You know what the 2 hottest cards were at AO2 release? Regalia Break and Bewildering Charm.
Was Regalia Break actually big for you when it came out? For me, it didn't happen until...
No, not when it came out. I'm saying AO2.
Okay. Oh, okay, yeah. Well, because everyone thought the card was a joke, right? Like, everything, Regalia, why would I want to destroy his Regalia? Let's play another one.
It absolutely pissed me off, because I ended up, like, I was ticking to the bottom, and then all of a sudden, like, I had a sale, and it was, like, $1.25. And I was like, yeah, all right, here's 2 regalia breaks for like 75 cents each.
Yeah, I guess it hurts
And
you a lot more
then
TCG
all
player
of a
'cause
sudden
you're
it was
paying
stocked out, and I'm just like,
transactions.
son of a ah, like that happens. So like stockouts are probably like my favorite part about Force of Will is we're small enough. We're small enough that stockouts happen regularly. Like sometimes there's 0 cards on the market. When there's 0 cards on the market, you reset the price and it sticks. It sticks. It like our market has the best memory for stockouts. Like as soon as there was 0, it will never be a cheap card after that. It will always
Hit and miss.
Oh, I
mean, part of
apologize.
it's
Until rotation.
or not even like I think what's the NDR, the protection spell for light that you can only play on your turn, something in the Angels.
Oh, you mean
Yeah,
the card that we
so-
made good
so,
in Vegas?
So like I don't remember who bought it all out, but someone bought like all of the copies on TCG Player,
That
and
was
they were
my
trying to
bad.
sell it for like $50 or $60 for full art. But you'll notice no one actually bought it. That's not the point.
I
The
sold
point is
mine
when
for
it
$20.
when,
I
when
sold
it
mine
did
for
actually
20.
settle to like 30 or 20 or whatever, it did actually drop again later on. Like I think you can actually get them pretty cheap right now. It
Let's
doesn't
find out.
necessarily mean they're going to stay high. But
That's
it's
actually
generally
on-
you're right. Like Alter definitely did stay high after you raised the price on Alter. So
Protection of the Angels full art right now is $6.
Yes.
yeah, so
And
that's
I'd
a
say
pretty
that's
big
not
spike
that's
drop.
not
like
cheap.
it's plateau, or it was
Well,
a lot more expensive.
I
Yeah,
think
even
I'm
a
pretty
couple months
sure
ago.
like every time we stock out a card, it's usually like $1 or $2. Like religiously, it's always like $1 or $2. And I
Sometimes
remember
they can stay pretty high. Like you're not going to find a cheap Alter anytime soon.
because Protection of the Angels was one of the cards I moved on. I moved on that full arts, and I scooped quite a bit of them up for less than $2.
Yep.
And so like that was back when I was making the move on Power of Immortality, March of the Dead. I still got like 10 full art copies of March of the Dead, Power of Immortality, March Hare too. March Hare was supposed to be really good. I made that card good for one tournament, and then it just it didn't do what I wanted it to do.
Did anyone see that? I did not know the Song of the Fairies, the full art is at $5, the common.
The cancel, yeah, that happened
not
on
know.
rotation because it's one of the only cancel spells. So
Mhm.
sometimes you see the opposite happen. Like sometimes people are like, "Oh, I all of a sudden have nothing. I can. Oh, this is a cancel spell. That's good enough. Let's throw it in." But like, that's kind of the
Yeah.
mindset that happened through a lot of people's heads, right? They're like, "What do I cancel with now, Kaguya?"
Millhouse over here says he bought like 100 heat rays for
Yeah.
under $1, but now he's
For the
just sitting
record,
on 100 heat rays.
I don't recommend just buying out cards. It's not actually a great strategy, but getting like a couple copies, like what Josh was doing, like it's a difference between buying 10 full arts and buying 100 of a regular card.
Yeah.
Like, some things just don't. It's like you can't affect them that easily, right?
If I
But other
can't
things are
stock
more
it out,
scared.
if I can't stock it out for $20, I won't make that move. But like, let's be clear though. Like, before I get like martyred as an enemy, I only stock out full arts. I do not affect the actual playable cards. You can go like I'm in it to go for the blingers. That's all. Like, you can still play the game of Force of Will for cheap. Don't hate me.
And if you stock out a card, you better be prepared to be sitting on that card for your entire life because it's very possible you might never move it again.
Yeah.
Let's see.
You're taking risk. You're still taking a risk, even if you're stocking
Oh
something.
yeah,
out.
absolutely.
You could even be taking the risk that Dylan's really lazy and he found a pile of them on his desk, so he actually has more. And then he just bought
Oh, man.
20 or 30 copies to find out that Dylan had 15 copies extra. So
So let's see. I made a move on this
It
it was
card.
March Hares, though.
I expected that the
Oh, the
Disgrace
stupid
Knight.
zombie.
I thought
Man,
he was
thought
gonna be
no
good.
play after that one set.
I thought he was
so
gonna
hyped.
be good.
He was
I
so hyped.
I made a move on March Hare that did nothing. Messenger of the Sun had
Messenger
like,
decent. Was a
but it
decent
only
pull.
had like 3 months of glory, and then it was
Yeah,
just
it,
like,
had, it did. Like you did see some return.
oh
right?
look, there it is. My last
Hey,
copy
he's
of
got
Protection
one
of the
copy.
Angels. I've made a couple moves on full arts, but all right, guys. Well, hell, it's been over an hour. Any final comments?
One last comment tying into what you said about dumping old cluster stuff at set 2. Now is the time. Go look at the prices for NDR and SMB. They're pretty good for some of the supers and rares.
Yep. Yeah, like go through your collection because Book of Corruption still carries value. Layla carries value. Lots of cards from back in the old cluster carry value, and you're getting to a point where I think after set 2 is usually probably where a lot of the meta decks get pretty refined, and so there might not be any like major changes to the meta from here. So like what's established is good, and so move it now.
Yep.
But Dylan,
No, I put in on you guys lots. I got a lot of words in. Okay.
all right, guys. Well, thank you very much for joining us for our very first ever Force of Will Finance podcast. If you are watching this on the TCG Scrubs YouTube channel, please comment below. Let us know what you think. If you want to see more of this, go over to the Rogues Guild Facebook page. Go ahead, give us a like, and go to our Twitch channel, give us a follow. I like to just go live, and I don't like to always post on Facebook saying that I'm going live, so just follow on Twitch and you'll get the notifications. But thank you very much for joining us. I was joined by Dylan and Emilio. I'm Josh Patton, and you guys have a wonderful night.